online. There is one little technical issue. Normally we project onto the screen just behind me the recommendations of the council that are being debated. Tonight the IT is not helping us, so you're not going to be able, those in the gallery will not be able to see the recommendations that we're debating, unfortunately. Those at home will be able to see it, so we'll just be a bit clearer on what we're talking about as we go through the various reports. So also wish to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of our Greater Geelong community today, and those who are here in person and those online. So I'm Stretch Contal, the Mayor. I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. First of all, we'll look at apologies and leaves of absence. We have a full complement of councillors this evening, so no apology, but we have 2 requests for leave of absence. The first one is Councillor Ron Nelson for the period 30 July of 2026 to the 9th of August 2026. I have a mover, Councillor Eddie Contal, Councillor Emma Sinclair. All those in favour? So that's carried unanimously. The next leave of absence request is by Councillor Wilkinson for the dates 17th of August 2026 to the 21st of August 2026. So a mover, Councillor Story and Councillor Katos. All those in favour? So that's carried unanimously as well. And I think that the leaves of absence. Declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest that anyone needs to advise in relation to tonight's agenda? And if any conflicts arise during the meeting, please make them known. But for the moment, are there any declarations? No. Okay, thank you. Next, confirmation of the minutes. May I please have a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting that was held on the 23rd of June of 2026. Councillor Nelson moves, Councillor Sinclair second. All those in favour? So that's carried unanimously. Next, we move into public question time and submission time. We have 6 questions that have been submitted, and we'll also be dealing with a petition after that. So I'll go through those questions in the order they're appearing here on my list. So Kelly Lavelle is the first person I ask to come forward. You have up to 3 minutes, Kelly, for each question.
Thank you for taking my questions tonight. And the first question relates to the integrated transport strategy. So I've been involved with all the consultations that you've had in regards to the strategy. And I'll just tell you a little bit about where I live and the impact of improvement to transport around where I live. So the redevelopment of the South Geelong train station has led to the renamed Jubilee Street and Amphlett Way becoming one-way streets, and vehicles now travel at 40 kilometres an hour down both those streets. A wide pedestrian cycle path has been created which connects the South Geelong train station to Kidinia Park, to the Bellarine Rail Trail, to the city, to the Barwon River, to the waterfront, and along the rail line now to Warm Ponds. These are off-road and they're safe to walk and cycle. As a local resident, and a very local resident, I'm literally across the road. I've witnessed so many more people now using this path for running, walking and cycling than ever before, when it was, if you can remember, the old Car Street, which ran along from Yarra to Swanson. So it's a clear case of build it and they will come. So many people are now using that shared path. So City of Greater Geelong commenced community engagement of the integrated transport strategy in 2024, and I've participated in all phases of the engagement. prior to writing my question, I had a look at your website and it indicates that phase 4 of the draft strategy and community consultation will be open in early 2026 and the final strategy will be adopted in mid-2026. Given that we're now approaching the end of July, my first question tonight is when will phase 4 of the integrated strategy be open and therefore also when will the final strategy be adopted by council?
I'll refer to the Acting Director, Jackie Randles, for Growth and Place. Jackie?
Thanks, Kelly, and thanks very much for sharing your observations as well. I think it's great to hear. So the draft integrated transport strategy is currently being finalised and is expected to be presented to Council in September, seeking approval to undertake community consultation. So subject to Council's consideration, community consultation will commence shortly afterwards. Following consultation, community feedback from people like yourselves will be reviewed and used to inform any refinements before the strategy is presented back to Council and councillors for consideration and potential adoption in hopefully late 2026, potentially early 2027.
Thank you, Jackie. So your next question, Kelly?
Oh, okay. The second question's about the Victorian State Government and other local government authorities are aiming for 25% of trips to be made by active transport in 2030. It'd be great if that was part of the integrated transport strategy for City of Great Geelong. The federal government has funding available for projects as part of the Victorian Active Transport Fund. Unfortunately, I cannot see any projects being funded in Geelong with this federal money, and I'd be happy to know if City of Greater Geelong has applied for funding for local projects. Bicycle Network is currently running a campaign asking the Victorian State Government for a commitment of 5% of the transport budget to be allocated to walking and cycling infrastructure. The United Nations recommends 25% of transport budgets be dedicated to active transport. Does the City of Greater Geelong have a response to Bicycle Network's request that 5% of the state transport budget be allocated to active transport?
I'll go back to the Acting Executive Director for Growth and Place, Jackie Randles.
Oh, thanks again, Kelly. The City has applied for funding opportunities through the Black Spot program in the past financial year, allowing for the design of improvements at several intersections across Geelong, East Geelong and Marshall, with the infrastructure to be delivered in the future. These projects will support a safer, slower road network with improved safety prioritised in their designs. The City recognises the important role that walking and riding infrastructure plays in creating connected, healthy and accessible communities, and you use excellent examples in your first question. We are supportive of any additional funding that will lead to a better active travel outcome for the state and in our region. The City will continue to work with the state and federal governments to advocate for funding that address local transport needs and supports a balanced and integrated transport network. We recognise the important role that walking and riding infrastructure plays in creating these environments, and we will continue on this advocacy with all levels of government. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. The next question is from Daniel Robertson.
Firstly, I want to raise an issue regarding the intersection at South Valley Road, Porter Avenue and Bonzi Road in Highton. I have noticed as drivers approach the intersection, some appear to significantly slow down from the 60 km/h speed limit. This presents a hazard to other drivers and pedestrians. Drivers who slow down may be doing so because it reasonably appears to them as a built-up area. There is also increased pedestrian traffic, particularly school children crossing the road, walking to the local pre- and primary schools. Many do not use the school crossing further north at the Kennedy Grove intersection. There is an electronic variable speed limit in the area. However, it is approximately 70 metres north of the intersection. So even during school times, the speed limit is still 60 kilometres per hour through there. I have had the unfortunate experience of a child stepping out onto the road in front of me there and needing to brake hard to avoid hitting them. While I recognise South Valley Road is classified as an arterial road and therefore within the jurisdiction of the state government, local governments have significant advocacy power. I therefore ask Council for its view on the safety of this intersection and if it will commit to making a submission to the Department of Transport and Planning to lower the speed limit.
Daniel, I'll refer to the Acting Executive Director for City Infrastructure, Alana Bedgood.
Thank you for your question, Daniel. The City has received community feedback from residents expressing concern regarding safety, congestion and the operation of the intersection, particularly during the peak travel periods. In response to the community feedback and the growing demands on the local road network, the City is advocating to the Department of Transport and Planning to undertake a detailed assessment of the intersection and consider appropriate safety and capacity improvements.
Question?
Secondly, regarding the Queen's Park Bridge, it is becoming increasingly apparent the current voluntary yield system is not effective at managing the flow of traffic. Currently, there is a non-standard informational sign on both sides of the bridge asking drivers to give way to waiting vehicles. Many do not. When drivers do not yield, traffic subsequently banks up further on the opposing side. During peak times, traffic will bank up 350 metres past Melville Avenue on the Newtown side and well past the golf course turnoff on the Highton side. The issue is further compounded given that drivers on the Highton side have an obstructed view of the bridge. Most weeks I go fishing beside the bridge, so I have a first-hand view of what occurs. There are often moments where vehicles from opposing sides will attempt to cross simultaneously. Drivers must then precariously reverse along the narrow bridge. I occasionally see broken glass on the road and the footpath below, which I suspect is due to this. But there are also occasionally standoffs between drivers. On one occasion, I witnessed and recorded a video of two drivers stopped on the bridge, one of whom exited their vehicle, verbally abusing each other over who had the right of way. Further pressure has been put on the bridge with the population increase of nearby suburbs in and around the Barrabool Hills area. Residents who live there understandably will not go out of their way to use the bridge between Shannon Avenue and Barrabool Road to cross the river. Data from the Department of Transport and Planning reveals that in 2019, an estimated 3,936 vehicles crossed the bridge each day. Although I was unable to find more recent data, extrapolating what is available reveals the current traffic volume is likely more than 4,800 vehicles per day. This may mean the single-lane bridge no longer complies with road traffic capacity guidelines and standards. Despite the bridge being within the purview of the state government, Council is responsible for the residential growth which is contributing to the traffic volume and subsequent issues. I therefore ask Council for its view on traffic management across the bridge and if it will commit to making a submission to the Department to initiate a review to improve it. I would suggest installing traffic lights. Thank you.
Daniel, it's a tricky one. I know Councillor Caddis and I have had a bit to do with this one over the years. I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything, Councillor Caddis, before I hand to the officer. Or...
Well, yes, the bridge, I understand. So you're looking to signalise it in peak hour? Yeah, a second bridge would be even better, but we've got to lobby the state government for that. But I understand. I've used that bridge many occasions, and a lot of people do. And I think with the size Geelong is now, it really needs a proper road bridge built, and the present Queen's Park Bridge kept as heritage for cycling, and it's actually heritage listed now, so it would need to keep that for cycling and also pedestrian movement, and then build a modern road bridge next to it is the best outcome. But of course we need to lobby the state government for that. And then the other problem is it's a limiting factor for public transport because you can't get buses through that bridge. So it really impinges on our ability to get a proper timetable for that part of Highton and even Newtown. So But I'll let Alana respond as well.
Acting Executive Director Alana Bedgood.
Thanks for the second question, Daniel. As the Queen's Park Bridge forms part of the arterial road network managed by the Department of Transport and Planning, decisions regarding traffic management measures, operational changes and potential infrastructure upgrades are the responsibility of the state government. However, in response to the concerns raised, the City will write to the Department of Transport and Planning to advocate for a review of the bridge and its current traffic management arrangements, including consideration of traffic volumes, safety, operational performance, and any potential improvement opportunities.
So Nelson, you wanted to
Just
say a word?
one moment, Daniel. I just wanted to say, with regard to that first intersection at South Valley Road and Bonzi and Porter Avenue, as you know, I am aware of that intersection. I live nearby, and I have spoken to a lot of residents with their concerns with regard to that. So just like we put the roundabout with crossings on it down at the corner of Thornhill and Roslyn, that may be a solution. Maybe we need lights there with, but we are working on it, and I will keep you updated. But thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel.
Daniel, thank you, Councillor Nelson. Next question, Dr. David Pavia.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask these questions. My wife and I have obtained a planning permit to build a new home at 55 Lower Paper Mills Road, Finesford, which is adjacent to the southeast corner of the Finesford landfill. We currently live at number 65 Lower Paper Mills Road and are well aware of the long history of issues with the landfill. We must shortly decide whether to enter into a building contract to build our new home, which represents a very significant financial commitment for us. That decision in part depends on understanding the future operation of the landfill and the planning controls that apply to the site. By way of background too, I've issued quite a more comprehensive letter to the planning department. My first question though is, what evidence has council relied upon to conclude that the existing use rights extend to the southeast corner of the landfill, given that the land comprises of separate titles and historical aerial photography appears to show little or no landfill activity there for many years? In a VCAT case in 2011, the tribunal found that existing use rights extended only to those lots supported by sufficient evidence of continuous use. How does council distinguish its position from that decision, and has it obtained any formal planning or legal advice on the issue?
Thank you for your question, Doctor. I'll hand to the Acting Executive Director for Growth and Place, Jackie Randalls. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you very much for your question, and as you say, we will be following up on your letter and responding to that, and we can also have conversations outside the chamber. But council has considered whether existing use rights extend to the southeast corner of the land and has formed the view that the existing use rights extend to the southeast corner. In doing so, council considered historical approvals for the landfill, such as Planning Permit 837, works approvals and licences issued by the Environment Protection Authority. The provisions of the planning scheme are available information regarding landfill operations, and this answer will also be provided to you after tonight. Council has formed the view that the site operates as one integrated area for the purpose of a landfill.
Jackie, so next question.
My second question is, given that the scale and scope of the landfill has significantly changed over the past few years, and the landfill operator's own website says it was once a landfill, but the site is now evolving into a state-of-the-art recovery and sorting facility that processes more than 150 tonnes of material per day. What is council's current understanding of the future operation of the Finesford landfill, including any intention to recommence waste picking, which council recently issued a cease notice to, and also expand the waste transfer or recycling activities or utilise the southeast corner of the landfill for operations, and what planning approvals and compliance processes would be required for such operations to continue?
Again, Jackie, thank you.
Contell. So the landowner has not informed council of its future intentions after landfill operations cease. Landfill operations, including the southeast corner, are lawful and can continue. Once operations cease, the owner has responsibilities to rehabilitate the land. We also note that the city has received separate correspondence from yourself over the weekend, which again we will respond to. So thank you.
Doctor. The next question, Vanessa Whitham.
Thank you, Mayor. I note that the City of Greater Geelong Plan for Nature is to be approved at tonight's council meeting. In the draft Plan for Nature, under Goal 3, Connections and Restoration, the 10-year targets include pest animal numbers reduced within city-managed reserves and roadsides. Under the action plan in the draft Plan for Nature, the only action listed for the next 2 years regarding pest animals is number 27, review and expand the rabbit action plan to include other pest animals such as foxes, deer and feral cats. My questions. First, what is the current estimate of pest animal numbers, rabbits, foxes, feral cats and deer on city-managed reserves and roadsides?
I'll refer that question to the Acting Executive Director for City Infrastructure, Alana Bedggood.
Thank you for your question, Vanessa. The city does not currently hold definitive pest animal population numbers across council-managed reserves and roadsides. Most pest animal management currently focuses on rabbits, with control programs delivered in line with the Rabbit Control Plan 2021 to 2026. Rabbit populations are monitored before and after control programs using spotlight surveys, and drone surveys have recently been trialled. The city has also recently commenced a deer control program at Sparrowvale Wetlands in Butch Newry. Baseline population data of 150 fellow deer was established through a Parks Victoria study of the Conowari complex prior to the commencement of control activities. All deer removed through the program are recorded, and in 2027 the city will initiate discussions with Parks Victoria to undertake another mapping exercise to measure deer numbers to determine whether our baseline data has changed.
Thank you. And question 2, well, how did the city calculate these numbers? So I guess you've already answered that. Thank you. But
Alana, do you want to add to that?
We've just got a little bit more to expand on that for you. So as we stated, the data for deer numbers was provided by Parks Victoria. And then the Geelong Plan for Nature 2026 to 2036 action will enable the city to review our pest animal management program and incorporate new species such as the Indian myna. It will also allow us to review our monitoring and reporting program to measure the effectiveness of our control activities and better understand their impact.
Thank you for your question, Vanessa. The next question is from Peter Klapinski.
Evening, councillors. My very first experience. So my concern is about some land being lost to green open space in Newcombe. On the Port Arlington Road at the corner of Coppards Road, opposite the funeral parlour that's there, just to give you an idea of where we're talking about. So there's a large vacant block there, about an acre. Fronting Port Arlington Road, though, is a 12-metre strip of what was declared a tree planting reserve. And that was done over 30 years ago. It's never been planted out. The city then acquired the ownership of that 1,200 square metres of land and vested it into ownership of the council. I supported that move because I thought it would hold into perpetuity the tree planting zoning of it. We are now faced with application number PP 416 of 2026, where Stat Planning wants to remove the tree planting reserve label, to take it away. That is my concern. This land was designated as a tree planting reserve over 30 years ago, but it has remained unplanted. Given the council has an urban tree strategy and will soon vote on a plan to better protect nature, it is incongruous that Stat Planning has applied to remove the existing reserve designation of this land, resulting in the loss of a rare urban green space, which is only 5 kilometres from the city centre. The first question is, what is the rationale for Stat Planning Department's internal application to remove the existing tree planting reserve? It worries me that the applicant and the deciding body is both the City of Greater Geelong.
Yeah. I'll refer the question to the Acting Executive Director for Growth and Place, Jackie Randalls.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks for coming tonight to ask this question. So the application lodged by the City's property unit and currently under assessment by the City's statutory planning unit seeks to remove a historical plantation reserve, which is a designation, contained within the plan of subdivision under the Subdivision Act 1988 for land at 166 to 176 Port Arlington Road, Newcombe. The application remains under consideration and no decision has been made as yet. The rationale for the application is to ensure that historical subdivision controls are reviewed against the contemporary planning and statutory framework applying to the land. The land is zoned low-density residential and is not zoned public park and recreation. The planning application relates only to the historical reserve designation and does not itself determine the future use of the land. Any future decision regarding the land would be subject to a separate consideration and any applicable legislative and public consultation requirements.
Over to you, Peter, for your next question.
Respond to that. I don't know that there's been sufficient information publicly for people to know what's happening there. I understand there were only 2 letters sent out, me and the other neighbour who fronts that property. The rest of the whole of Newcombe don't know about it. And I think there needs to be more publicity on a proposal like this. To lose green space, which is so valuable, is a bit of a contentious issue, and I would have thought there'd be more consultation needed before any decision is made.
That may well occur. There's been no decision made in relation to the future use of the land, and there is a process if there was a decision to be made.
Right,
but then, I understand your point though, and the local councillor is here, and you've now raised the issue publicly, so I'll let you ask your next question.
Well, the second's related. What are the benefits to the community and to the environment of removing the existing tree planting area?
Again, Acting Executive Director Jackie Randalls.
Mayor. And just as I said in the previous response, the application itself is not proposing any physical change to the land, removal of vegetation, development or alteration of public access. Its purpose is simply to clarify the land's historical designation and ensure future decisions, if any, can be considered through the appropriate legislation and public consultation processes if another application comes for further use. So.
All right, so thank you for raising the issue. I'm sure you've made a number of us councillors aware of it, so thank you. The next question is Jean Nell. Right. All right, so that is it for the submitted questions. Are there any questions without notice? No? All right, so thank you everyone for your questions and officers for your answers. Everyone who submitted a question will also receive a response in writing, and your question and answer will also be placed on our website. So thank you for that. There's a petition that is going to be presented tonight. So now I invite Dr. Daryl Ridley to speak on behalf of the petition, requesting for it to be tabled this evening. So, Dr. Ridley.
Evening, Mayor and councillors, and thank you for your time this evening and the opportunity to present this petition on behalf of local residents. The petition is titled the Child Safety and Protection Overlay, and this calls for an introduction of planning protections that prevent sex industry businesses from operating within 200 metres of a school. Very important up front to say this petition is not about opposing lawful business, nor judging those people who work in or use these businesses. Rather, this is a simple planning question of should a sex industry business be permitted immediately adjacent to places where children learn, walk and gather on a daily basis. The over 500 residents who signed this petition believe the answer is no. We're not asking for precedents in this matter, as current planning laws already exist that exclude adult bookstores and shops from operating within 200 metres of a school. The petition is simply asking for the council to advocate for a similar zone that recognises child safety and community expectations. We recognise that the council may not have the authority to implement such an overlay independently, but the council has an important role in advocating to the Victorian government for planning reforms that affect their communities. So, accordingly, we respectfully ask the council to receive this petition, formally acknowledge the community concerns that it represents, and importantly, to advocate to the Victorian government to enact the overlay. So I thank you for your time and consideration.
Ridley, we'll take a petition is tabled. I'll now hand over to Councillor Nelson.
Mr Mayor, thank you, Daryl, for coming in tonight to speak on behalf of your petition. I just wanted to say a few words, Mr Mayor, if that's okay. This is just with regard to the Child Safety Protection Overlay, and it states, in December 2023, the Victorian Government amended the Victorian Planning Provisions Amendment VC 217 to decriminalise sex work. This change allowed sex services premises, including adult massage parlours and brothels, to operate as of right, which you've said, in commercial zones, including land within 200 metres of schools. So I fully support your petition, which got over 500 signatures in a short period of time, and hopefully we can write to the state government and get some common sense approach to what is an unintended consequence of the planning provisions. I'd like to thank Daryl and Dave and everyone in the chamber tonight who came in and got those petitions, so got those signatures on those petitions. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Thank you, Doctor. Right, so that concludes those formalities. We now move on to the reports, section 2. The first item is the Environment Strategy Highlights Report of 2026. And can I have a mover, Councillor Wilkinson to move it and Councillor Story to second? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to support this report, which demonstrates the substantial progress our council continues to make delivering the Environment Strategy 2020 to 2030. This report highlights the city's strong commitment to protecting our environment while building a more sustainable, resilient and climate-ready community. Since adopting the strategy in 2020, council has worked across the five key areas: climate action, greener community spaces, waste reduction, biodiversity protection and integrated water management. The results achieved during 2025 to 2026 show that we are making meaningful progress towards these goals. A review of the current action plan found that 48% of actions have been completed and a further 40% are on track. This is a significant achievement and demonstrates continued momentum across a broad range of environmental priorities. Some that stand out include a 41% reduction in corporate carbon emissions since 2019 through initiatives such as renewable energy purchasing, solar installation and street lighting upgrades. These measures are also delivering approximately $900,000 in annual savings. Increased greening of our neighbourhoods through updated nature strip landscaping guidelines, resulting in more than 82 registered nature strip gardens through the community grants programs. Major restoration works across Warn Ponds Creek, Barwon River and Marooble River systems, including the planting of approximately 50,000 Indigenous plants in partnership with traditional owners and regional stakeholders. Support for the circular economy through public sale of locally processed compost, which is the best compost any money can buy, helping residents return valuable organic material to local soils. Development of stronger environmentally sustainable design provisions for growth areas to improve emissions reduction, water efficiency, urban greening and climate resilience. Continued success of the Electric Homes program, which has engaged more than 3,200 residents and supported 759 household electrification upgrades. And it goes on. So these achievements demonstrate that what can be accomplished when council works collaboratively with community, traditional owners, government agencies, educational institutions and organisations. It's a really positive reflection of the city's environmental leadership and provides confidence that we're moving in the right direction.
Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and difficult to add anything of major substance to my colleague Councillor Wilkinson, who is also the chair of the Environment and Circular Economy Advisory Committee, which has been meeting and will continue to meet through into next year. And we find that a remarkably useful environment, no pun intended, to get better community engagement and involvement and voices outside the city. So that committee will, with the officers' work, continue to show that we are a council and a city that thinks very carefully about the environment. We're an unusual city because we have significant urban areas and significant rural and regional and coastal areas. So we have a broad range of environments to understand and to look after. So I commend this motion to the Chamber.
Councillor Story. Any other councillor wishing to comment? Councillor Sinclair.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I also wanted to acknowledge the report and the fantastic work that's been made over the past 12 months. It's delivering not just environmental benefits, but economic and community benefits as well. There are a couple of items that I wanted to touch on, particularly the Electric Homes program, because I think this is a real example of environmental conservation activity also having a strong economic benefit, particularly in a time where we've got cost of living pressures. This program was an investment from council of $150,000. And it's leveraged almost $4.9 million in community investment. So that's $32 for every $1 invested, which is just wild, really. And this is helping people with their energy costs, with their heating and cooling of their house, and reducing emissions. So it is win-win, and these are really important, clever programs. There's also been significant work from the city. This is not delivered by ourselves. There is partnerships across the city, and some of those green links that we're looking at in Warm Ponds Creek and other green links, we've sought grant investment from other levels of government, so $1.3 million. So the team are really proactive in seeking funding as well. So really pleased to support this report and acknowledge the great work that's happened in the city over the last 12 months.
Councillor Sinclair. Anyone else wish to speak? If not, Councillor Wilkinson to close.
Thank you. And I take the moment to congratulate council officers, partners and community members who have contributed to these outstanding outcomes. And while this report rightly celebrates the significant progress made, it also reminds us there's still work to be done. So 12% of actions within the current action plan require improvement. And we know that the challenges posed by climate change, biodiversity loss, and waste generation and water security continue to evolve. So looking ahead, we've got to focus. It must be on maintaining momentum and accelerating action where needed. This includes further reducing corporate and community emissions, expanding urban greening, strengthening biodiversity outcomes, embedding environmentally sustainable design into new developments, and continuing to support residents and businesses in the transition to a low carbon future. As our region continues to grow, it will be increasingly important to ensure environmental sustainability remains at the centre of planning and decision making. The progress outlined in this report provides a strong foundation, though, in achieving the aspirations of the Environment Strategy 2020 to 2030. It will require ongoing commitment, investment, collaboration across the community. I look forward to this continued progress for our community.
Councillor Wilkinson, so I'll put the recommendation. The Council notes the Environment Strategy Highlights Report of 25-26 and the key environmental sustainability outcomes and achievements. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. And just before we move to the next item, if the mover can just read out the proposed recommendation just for the benefit of the gallery, given that it's not displayed. So we'll move then to the next item, the Geelong Plan for Nature of 2026-2036. A mover, Councillor Sinclair. Seconder, Councillor Wilkinson. So, Councillor Sinclair, maybe if you could just read that out, what you're proposing.
So the recommendation is that Council adopts the Geelong Plan for Nature 2026-36, which is included in an attachment, and acknowledges and thanks the community and employees for their valuable input and feedback throughout the development of the plan.
You can speak to it the normal way.
Thank you. So I'm really pleased to be introducing the Plan for Nature this evening, and we've already had questions in question time relating to it and lots of feedback throughout the community. So it is something that the community is really excited to see come to fruition. It sits under the strategy that we just had an update on, and it provides a long-term vision to protect, restore and connect nature across Greater Geelong. It's not just a plan for the environment, it is a growth plan, it is a livability plan, it is a climate resilience plan, and it is a partnership plan because we don't deliver this work by ourselves. I think there's an incredible tension in Geelong at the moment. As we do grow, we have so much development underway. So if we don't have a plan for how we protect our biodiversity, we don't manage that tension well. So it is really timely that we're bringing this plan to Council now. I see that play out every day in my ward in Armstrong Creek. There's land that is disappearing and houses that are being built. I get emails about kangaroos that are being landlocked. We have residents that are really aware of the loss of habitat and the impact of now interacting with some of those, the trees that we protected, we now interact with in an accessible open space. So we do need to have strategies in place to how we address people moving into some of these protected space, not protected, but these important biodiverse areas. In Geelong, only 18% of our original remnant vegetation remains and wetlands remain, so it is really important. That's a low figure, so we do need a plan to protect. And currently only 9.7% of the municipality is in protected conservation areas. More than 90% of our vegetation are classed as rare, vulnerable or endangered. And 24 of 41 nationally threatened species have a habitat on council managed land. So there's some real sensitivities that we're working with in our environment. So the way the Plan for Nature wants or seeks to address this is it's got 4 pillars. The first one being to protect our highest value ecosystems and threatened species, to restore and connect by improving habitat and strengthening wildlife corridors, to partner and engage, we work alongside other members of the community, and building resilience, not just climate resilience, but healthy ecosystems that support healthy communities as well. Biolinks is something that have come up really often in consultation. It's something that people want to be able to see wildlife corridors for large wildlife to move easily, but also acknowledging we need wildlife corridors for insects and other smaller creatures as well to be able to move through the city and urban landscape. Consultation has been broad. It has been circulated with our advisory committee through a consultation process, and the delivery will be just as broad. It is not just council. We will work with community groups, so like the Friends of groups, the land care groups. We will work with state departments, we'll work with environmental volunteers and environmental organisations, and I think really importantly we'll be working with Wadawurrung traditional owners, and they really underpin or the care of country that has been delivered over millennia is a principle that underpins this plan for nature. So I might leave that there for now and allow my colleagues to speak.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. And very well well summed up to Councillor Sinclair. I think what this plan does really well is it recognises the challenges that we face honestly and provides a real framework for action. So community feedback has strengthened the final document, particularly around habitat connectivity, protecting remnant vegetation, supporting threatened species, managing invasive plants and animals, and ensuring that all residents have access to quality natural spaces, regardless of where they live in the City of Greater Geelong. So importantly, the consultation also highlighted community expectations around implementation. So our community is not just asking for another strategy, they want to see real outcomes on the ground, measurable progress and transparent reporting. So this means real work begins after the adoption. So over the next decade, we'll need to continue restoring and protecting habitat across the municipality, improve connectivity between natural areas to support wildlife movement, strengthen partnerships with Wadawurrung traditional owners and incorporate cultural knowledge into land management. Support volunteers, land care groups and community organisations who undertake critical environmental work, address invasive species and manage the impact of domestic animals on wildlife. And that was a very interesting and topical point raised in our question time. Improved biodiversity data and mapping, so decisions are informed by good evidence, and secure resources and funding to deliver the priorities identified in this plan. And it is really exciting to know that our environmental team is actually incredibly adept at applying for grants and resource to be able to include that. I think I'm particularly pleased to see the inclusion of the strong monitoring, evaluation, reporting and improvement framework. So this will help to ensure that council is accountable for delivery and able to demonstrate progress over time. It's really, I want to acknowledge that council cannot achieve these outcomes alone. So the strong response to the consultation process shows there's a genuine willingness from our community, environmental organisations, traditional owners, government agencies and residents to work together to improve the health of our natural environment. And it was really important as a line item within our budget, just to support that biolinks aspect of $100,000 to really sort of incorporate that and get some of that work happening to really sort of maximise that momentum from the engagement process. I'd really like to thank everyone who contributed to the development of the plan. Passion, knowledge, advocacy has helped create a really strong document and a clear direction for the future.
Councillor Wilkinson, anyone else wishing to speak? If not, Councillor Sinclair to close.
Thank you. I would just absolutely like to thank officers. We've been being briefed on this for I think at least 18 months. There's so much work that's gone into that and there was work going into it before we came on board. So really appreciate and value the thought and expertise and knowledge that has gone into developing this plan. And I wanted to end on a quote, which I hope I'm able to do, that was included in the consultation. Retaining or improving the biodiversity of living species within the Geelong region is not just a feel-good aspiration, although those people involved will gain much satisfaction. Retaining biodiversity is our obligation to future generations, to Wadawurrung culture and heritage, and to the continued existence of the amazing ecosystems that have existed around the Geelong region. And that is from the Geelong Fields Naturalists Club. I think that's a really lovely way to sum up the plan and the stewardship that this plan undertakes to make sure that we have a beautiful environment and livable city for future generations to come. Thank you.
Councillor Sinclair, so put that to the vote. All those in favour? So that's carried unanimously. The next item is the draft urban forest strategy, Healthy Country 2026 to 2036. I have a mover, Councillor Story to move, Councillor Sinclair to second. Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's a theme developing here. This is the third branch of this amazing work that the council and the city officers have done and are continuing to do. So the motion that is before the chamber is that council endorses the draft urban forest strategy, Healthy Country 2026 to 2036 at attachment 1 to be released for a 4-week period of community consultation. And 2, notes a further report will be presented to council following community consultation. So this is an example of the process in action. We've already heard 2 other significant pieces of work where the community's been heavily involved and significantly and helpfully involved, and we're now putting out another piece of work for community consultation. The city prepared a draft urban forest strategy, Healthy Country 2026-2036, in response to a council resolution in July of last year. And that was to update the existing urban forest strategy 2015 to 2025, and the strategy will set the future direction for tree canopy and urban greening across the city of Greater Geelong. This strategy is aligned to the council's commitment to trees. That sounds an unusual sort of phrase, but we do have a commitment to trees, and we have a history as a city of being very thoughtful about our trees and wanting to grow more of them. There's a 30-year community vision of Greater Geelong, a clever and creative future for the Greater Geelong region, recognising the uniqueness and significance of our natural environments. Our council plan, 2025 to 29, Environment and Circular Economy, commits to protect and enhance our unique natural environment and surrounds. And our environment strategy, 2020 to 30, contains multiple actions to meet the goal of protecting, enhancing and restoring the region's biodiversity by 2030. And biolinks can occur in trees in urban environments as well. The important thing is that the draft strategy will undergo 4 weeks of community consultation and is scheduled to return to council for adoption in late 2026. And I think we would all, as councillors and officers, encourage people to comment through the Have Your Say facility or through individual councillors. This draft strategy will give a clear long-term framework to guide how we plan, deliver and manage tree canopy and urban greening across the municipality. It will improve climate resilience. Climate change is a fact. It will improve climate resilience and will enhance livability by identifying where planting should occur, how it can be delivered and how it integrates with broader council planning and infrastructure. The draft strategy includes actions to increase municipal canopy towards the 30% target through a more strategic use of available planting space, stronger community partnerships and improved coordination across council programs. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Story. Councillor Sinclair.
Thank you. As Councillor Story said, we aim to increase our canopy cover by 30%, or to 30%, sorry. And the reason behind that is, there's a lot of reasons. So we have a beautiful, livable city, we have beautiful greenery, but the things that really speak to me are around heat resilience and climate resilience, and also equity across our municipality. So we know that having a canopy and having trees creates cooler and greener and more resilient urban areas. Trees create shade. They create beautiful parks that we can interact with. They are water sensitive for urban design, and they provide essential infrastructure in urban spaces. When we think about climate resilience and how trees can contribute to that, so we need to acknowledge that extreme heat is not necessarily experienced equally. We have different demographics that might be more at risk. So older residents, younger children are more at risk. People living with disability or chronic illness, people experiencing homelessness. households who can't afford maybe air conditioning or other heating and cooling costs. So providing trees to help moderate the climate of the city reduces the burden on those residents. For people that aren't driving or that don't have access to transport, who rely on their pedestrian access, these trees provide really beautiful coverage for people to walk safely between houses. So this plan addresses some of that as well. It's not just about trees on their own. And we do need to acknowledge that the trees that we have are not distributed currently evenly across our city. There are areas in the north which have lower canopy coverage that are probably experiencing more of this disadvantage and would benefit from climate resilience introduced by more canopy coverage. So really happy to support this plan. I think it's a real benefit to our community in Geelong, and look forward to hearing what the community responds and comes back with in consultation.
Councillor Sinclair. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. Importantly, this strategy aligns with Council's broader environmental commitments, so including our community vision, our council plan and our environmental strategy. So you're right, it's this beautiful woven weave that we have this evening of our environmental strategies. I particularly welcome the focus on strategic evidence-based approach to planting. So the draft identifies where canopy is needed most, seeks better use of available planting opportunities and recognises the importance of partnership with residents, community groups, developers and other stakeholders in achieving the canopy goals. I really encourage residents and community organisations, landowners, stakeholders to take the opportunity to read the draft and provide their views during the consultation. Perhaps we could put it out there that, perhaps we could get even more than the plan for nature, given that got so many people engaged. If we could get, such a positive engagement from our community, because really to reach a canopy cover of towards 30% target, we really need to be looking at the trees that are on private property, and people need to be looking and thinking about how to not only plant, but how do you maintain and care for these trees? How do you, these are really important pieces of infrastructure, but they're living pieces of infrastructure. So how do we live alongside and with our trees? Because without our trees, we are indeed bereft. I commend the officers for their work and in preparing this draft, and I support the recommendation before us today.
Councillor Wilkinson. Any other councillor wishing? Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, and it's appropriate we are talking about trees, because on Sunday it was actually National Tree Day in Australia, and I want to congratulate all the Parks and Gardens team at the City of Greater Geelong that were out there over about 7 to 8 different locations planting trees. I had the pleasure of assisting the planting of 500 trees in Stead Park in Corio with the City of Greater Geelong Parks and Gardens team and the Baps Indian community of Geelong as well too. They had over 100 representatives there at that particular tree planting event. We constantly get negative criticism about what the City of Greater Geelong is doing, but that was a perfect example on Sunday where a number of us councillors and the community were working together to actually address the planting of trees and delivering not just a policy and making a wordsmith about a document, but actually doing something very important. And one of the proud moments that we certainly had in 2023 was when we became a tree city of the world. And that was a great designation, and we continue to work to maintain that designation, and that's part of what this strategy is doing as well too, Mr Mayor. There's only 12 local councils in the whole of Australia that are tree cities of the world, and we happen to be one of them, and we should be really proud of that fact, and we should be celebrating that fact. Just some stats to actually get people to understand about trees in Geelong. We have over 190,000 urban trees in Geelong, of which 119,000 are actually lining our streets, and about another 49,000 trees are actually growing in our open public space areas in Geelong, and it just shows you the level of greenery and urban canopy we have now, but it also gives you confidence about what we can do and what we need to do in the future, and that's certainly what the Stead Park example was on Corio by planting 500 trees to try to expand the urban tree canopy. This is a great opportunity for the community to give us feedback about all of those things we are doing in relation to trees at the present time, and doing it under a controlled manner associated with the draft urban forestry strategy for 26 to 2036. And the only other thing I do want to make a comment on, and it would be good to get public feedback on, it's this issue about trees on private land. It is really restrictive what council can do. But what we can do is actually lead by example, and that's what this strategy is actually doing. It's actually saying council is showing leadership about how we can try to address and improve the tree canopy, how we actually look at the biodiversity of different types of trees that exist within the local government area of Geelong. But importantly, it sets an example for people that have trees on private land of a standard that your community is actually expecting of you in terms of trees on your private land. Simply because a tree is on your land doesn't mean that you can cut it down and then you can destroy the canopy associated with it. Please look at this draft strategy to actually see what the community is actually asking for and what council is actually asking for as well too, in how to properly manage our existing tree canopy, but also expand our tree canopy within Geelong as well too, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Aiken. Councillor Eddie Contel.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I won't go over everything that the other councillors have already articulated, which was very informative, but during the consultation and discussions that we've been having with officers around this report and others, we've not only spoken about our desire and aspiration to continue to increase canopy coverage, but we've also spoken about some of the challenges that are created with some of the legacy trees that we have in our suburbs, and we've all experienced those trees that perhaps are inappropriate for the area of where they've been planted, inappropriate species perhaps, and some of the challenges that they cause not only for the residents of those areas but the infrastructure in those areas, whether it be curb and channel, whether it be fences, pathways, nature strips, trip hazards, the like. And so officers are trying to take a balanced approach to that. So it's not about just planting trees for the sake of planting more trees. It's about having the right specimen of tree in the right location, but also dealing with those that are perhaps causing us challenges. And so I'd be really interested in the community giving us feedback through both lenses, because both are important.
Eddie Contel. Any other councillor wishing to speak? If not, back to Councillor Story to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to leave council with one thought. When we look at trees, a group of trees, they're not just big plants, they're actually a community. They communicate with each other, and there's a remarkable research being done that's quite clear now that trees understand what's going on around them, communicate threat amongst the group of trees, and protect each other. So it's another way of looking at trees. They're not just things to give us shade, important as it is, but they are living creatures. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Sorry. So with that, put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. The next item is the adoption of the Planning Scheme Amendment C484GGE Heritage Design Guidelines. Have a mover, Councillor Story, seconder, Councillor Katos. Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll read the recommendation that Council 1 adopts Amendment C484GGEE Heritage Design Guidelines in the form outlined in Attachment 1 of this report. 2, adopts the Greater Geelong Heritage Design Guidelines, July 2026, Attachment 1. And 3, submits the adopted Amendment C484GGEE together with the prescribed information to the Minister for Planning requesting approval. Mr Mayor, This is a sort of a tidying up and sorting out and neatening of a process, and the proposed amendment formally adopts the heritage design guidelines within the planning scheme. This is an important planning step following Council adopting the guidelines in November of 2025. It gives the guidelines statutory planning weight in decisions. Essentially, this is very good news for heritage outcomes in Greater Geelong. Greater Geelong's built heritage contributes to local character, identity, tourism, economic activity and community pride. It is important to protect and enhance our heritage through appropriate heritage design guidance. The new guidelines replace 1997 heritage guidelines. Changes since 1997. I mean, Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter book was in 1997 and things have changed a little since then. There's an increased focus on accessibility of buildings and sustainable design. One example is that solar panels were a very new concept in 1997 and are now a common addition to buildings. The Heritage Design Guidelines provide clear and practical guidance for property owners, designers and developers on how to manage change to heritage places and precincts. They help protect Greater Geelong's heritage while supporting appropriate new development and investment. The guidelines add value to the City of Greater Geelong and the statutory planning process by improving consistency, transparency and certainty for applicants, council officers and decision makers, while supporting the assessment of planning permit applications involving heritage places. I think councillors might remember the version presented to us in November 25. Only minor edits and refinements have been made to improve clarity, readability and usability. The guidelines are a very accessible document, with the graphics and photographs providing a visual illustration to support the text. These are much more than pretty pictures, but visual diagrams to support decisions leading to better heritage outcomes. It is indeed, Mr Mayor, a model of clarity and concision. The Heritage Advisory Committee, the National Trust and the broader community supported the development of the guidelines, recognising the value of consistent and practical guidance for managing change in heritage places. No submissions were received during the public exhibition period of the amendment, demonstrating that the guidelines were viewed as clear and user-friendly and a valuable resource for property owners, designers and developers. The new guidelines deliver on a major initiative within the council plan. And again, the work of the officers in producing this document is to be commended. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Story. Councillor Katos.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Story has certainly given a very good summary of the motion before us this evening. But yeah, the key thing is 1997 was the last time these guidelines were updated, so that's almost 29 years. So, and times have changed, particularly around sustainable design, accessibility. No, the accessibility rules that are around now didn't exist 30 years ago as far as buildings go, so they have to be accounted for. And architecture has changed in that time. But what this does, it gives consistency and certainty. So you can open the guide as a property owner, a developer, whatever you might be, and you've got consistency. It's in black and white, or it's in colour actually, the guide, but there's certainty as to what you can do, which is important because it isn't a black and white area, it is a bit of a grey area sometimes, so the more certainty you can provide the community, the better. And I think the important thing, Councillor Story did mention it was exhibited, between the 16th of April and the 18th of May this year. But given the passion that a lot of people have for heritage, the fact that we didn't get a submission is a good thing. And I think that's partly because obviously the guidelines were developed with heritage specialists, council officers, and also benchmarked against what other councils do. So I think that's reflected in the fact that we didn't get any submissions, which is a good outcome because, as we know, we get a lot of people in the chamber with a great deal of passion around heritage. But with that, look, I'm happy to support the adoption of these guidelines.
Councillor Katos. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Aiken, you were here back in 1997. You don't recall that original debate? Thought you might add something historic there. If not, Councillor Story, to close.
That's harsh.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just encourage my colleagues to support this recommendation. Thank you.
With that, we put it to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item is the future library service delivery model. I have a mover, Councillor Wilkinson, and a seconder, Councillor Sullivan. So, Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. The future library service delivery model is quite a long recommendation, so here I go. That Council notes the requirement under the Local Government Act 2020 Victoria, Section 330, for library corporations to be wound up by the 1st of July 2031. Number 2, notes the analysis and review work undertaken, including findings by both the City and the Geelong Regional Library Corporation. Number 3, commits the City of Greater Geelong to option 1, transition to a new company limited by guarantee, while maintaining a shared service with regional partners for the delivery of library services with its current partner, the Geelong Regional Library Corporation. Number 4, notes that the issues outlined in this report with the current library services delivery model will be addressed in any future arrangements. Number 5, authorises the CEO or their delegate to undertake activities with Geelong Regional Library Corporation and other member councils that progress the formation of regional shared service model. Number 6, notes a further report will be presented to adopt the governance arrangements and documentation for option 1, and finally, number 7, endorses the development of a City of Greater Geelong position paper that outlines Council's strategic objectives for library services. And as the Deputy Chair of the Geelong Regional Library Corporation Board, I'd like to firstly give some context, but to speak in support of the officer's recommendation to transition to a new company limited by guarantee, while retaining a regional shared service model for library delivery. So firstly, it's important to recognise that this report is not a reflection of poor service delivery. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The Geelong Regional Library Corporation consistently delivers some of the strongest community satisfaction results across our organisation and is recognised as one of the highest performing library services in Victoria. Our libraries are much more than places to borrow books. They are community hubs that support literacy, lifelong learning, digital inclusion, social connection and wellbeing for thousands and thousands of residents every year, a safe and welcoming place. We have a well-engaged, valued workforce and incredibly trusted service. The reason we're considering this matter tonight is because the Local Government Act requires all regional library corporations to transition to a new governance model by 2031. This means we must determine the best way to deliver library services into the future. So the report outlines 3 options: transitioning to a new company limited by guarantee while maintaining a regional shared service model, bringing services in-house while potentially providing library services to neighbouring councils, and bringing library services in-house for the City of Greater Geelong, or bringing services in-house while potentially providing library services to neighbouring councils. Those 3, sorry. The GRLC board identified option 1 as the preferred model, and in principle, support from all member councils was provided back in July 2024, so work has been underway since then. Given the significant investment by City of Greater Geelong in libraries, however, it's also been important that council has undertaken financial and legal due diligence as well. This report is the culmination of this. The recommendation also aligns with the original recommendation of the GLC board to commit to transition to a new company by limited guarantee. Having considered the analysis, I believe that option 1 provides the best balance of continuity, accountability and long-term sustainability. It retains the high-performing library service. It allows us to build on already successful library service rather than starting again from scratch. It maintains continuity of service, avoids disruption for our library users and preserves the expertise in established programs. It delivers better governance and accountability. So the new model provides the governance improvements we need while retaining the benefits of regional collaboration. So this work will be undertaken and returned to council for a decision. So a new constitution, governance framework, stronger service level agreements, clearer reporting performance measures and actually greater council oversight in the long run. The report highlights that the current model has governance shortcomings. so including outdated agreements and unclear accountability agreements. It preserves economies of scale, so as Victoria's largest library network, GLC benefits from shared resources and expertise, shared staffing, shared technology and collections, shared program development, reduced duplication of services. Working together allows councils to achieve efficiencies and services outcomes that would be quite difficult and costly to achieve individually. It gives greater financial certainty, so the consultant found all options broadly comparable over 10 years. But this also, it provides a more predictable and less disruptive path while delivering governance reform. It avoids major establishment costs associated with creating a new standalone service, reduces the transition risks and supports long-term financial planning. The 5 member councils have worked together successfully for decades now. Libraries are one of the best examples of councils working together effectively to deliver benefits across the region. We maintain our regional collaboration, preserve relationships and shared knowledge, and create stronger voice when seeking state and federal support funding, while also opening up options for other financial avenues as a new entity. A regional model provides the scale and capability needed to continue evolving library services as community expectations change. And as we see, there has been innovation in this space. The library now is nothing what it used to be when I was a child. You can go in there and you can do all sorts of things. And it's an incredible space. So, responding to issues around isolation. So, for example, the book kiosk that's been integrated into Birregurra, for example, is a really great example of this sort of innovation. Most importantly, our people are one of the greatest assets. So this provides the most smooth pathway for staff and service community. It really provides that continuity, a greater workforce stability, retention of experienced staff, and reduce the industrial relations risk, preservation of organisational knowledge. And I'll leave it there.
Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I thank Councillor Wilkinson for describing in great detail the structure, the approach and the importance of the model going forwards. I won't repeat any of that data outlined, but I will repeat why this is important. The City of Greater Geelong takes libraries incredibly seriously. They're a place of connection, of community, of education as well. If we don't have that, we don't have much. Since I've been on council over the last 10 years, our funding of the GRLC has gone from roughly $10 million a year up to just below $15 million a year. So it's an average of $12 million a year for 10 years. We'll put that roughly at $120 million. In that time, we've also rebuilt 4 new libraries since I've been on the council. We've had Biala for $20 million. We've had Drysdale for $10 million there. We've had Leopold as well for just under $10 million. And we've had Newtown Chilwell going on now at the moment, just Chilwell, for $2.5 million. That's another $42 million in funds right there. So in rough numbers, over the last 10 years, we have spent over $172 million into our library services and infrastructure. And it deserves a structure and a model that protects that for the community going forwards. Yes, we have to change. The government's been told us we've got to change. But this gives us the opportunity to update our structures, our governance, and our service level agreements, which we're imposing on this, to show that the Geelong community is getting the most it can for these dollars. It also enables us to have direct control over the hours and funding allocation to the buildings within our municipality. We won't have to be part of, when we're setting hours for different libraries and services, we won't have to be taking the entire Geelong Regional Library Corporation area into consideration, because each council, each partner will have dictate its own areas and what they expect of them. So we'll have direct control over that, which I think is a fantastic addition if we do follow that down that path. But as I said, this is important to us. It's important to our community. We have some amazing membership numbers there. They're some of the highest in the state and some of the highest usage models in the state. So make sure that we have the proper structures in there to protect the incredible amount of funding that we put into this for the community is vitally important. I'm happy to endorse the motion of this model going forwards.
Councillor Sullivan. Any other councillor wishing to speak on the matter? Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, tonight is a big decision because what council is doing is they're committing to regional service, shared servicing as a delivery model for libraries. That's essentially what we're doing. So we're bedding that down. What the report also identifies to the council and exposes to the broader community is that there are significant issues associated with library services in Geelong. And what the challenge now for the Library Corporation and for the governance model that we're agreeing to is what are library services going to be going forward in the region. And the challenges that have been identified and publicly exposed through this report are quite damning. If you look at part 14 of the public report that is out there, it actually says that even though there is high community satisfaction and Public Library Victoria's performance measures are very good, it identifies at least 6 areas of significant concern in terms of library service delivery. And the challenge is now going to be for the Library Corporation Limited by Guarantee Company to address those concerns. And these concerns aren't just for the City of Greater Geelong. These are actually concerns that all regional councils that make up the proposed library need to focus on. And they have been touched on by a couple of the councillors already. What we do know and has been identified in this review process is that councils have limited control over the operations and the strategic directions of libraries. That's not acceptable when you're putting in $16 million of public money into a service and you actually have limited control over it. It's been touched on that the library agreement is now significantly outdated and has provided poor overarching government documentation because of it. Importantly, the report has also said to us as councillors that there is an absence of service level agreements and accountability mechanisms. Well, that's not acceptable, and it is important that we address that as quickly as possible. It also talks about the duplication between the council and the GRC's corporate functions and its community programs. We're constantly, I know, with our neighbourhood centres are actually saying to me that the library service is duplicating what they are doing, and it is spreading the money very thin in the City of Greater Geelong that we are funding both neighbourhood centres and libraries that are actually providing very similar services in the community. And it actually was quite damning and said that there is no clearly defined council strategy or policy direction for library services. So they are significant issues that we have to take ownership and responsibility on as the council group. And we also have to ensure that the new library structure and governance model actually does deliver and responds to all of those concerns. Because if it doesn't, we have failed in what has been identified to us during this process. So it is a significant challenge that the new company Limited by Guarantee is going to have, and it is also significantly accountable responsibility of this council group and all the council groups throughout the region of Geelong to ensure that we get the best library services that we can, and we also understand what are those library services going to be going forward, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Aiken. Any other councillor wishing to speak? Councillor Person.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Councillor Aiken said about there's a bit of mission creep going on between libraries and community centres. If we're doing the same thing for both of them, are we double paying for certain things? Other things that I'm not overly happy about is committing to something before we've got reports on governance and things. I think committing to something before you've actually got reports is not the greatest move. I get that the time will happen, but we've got till 2031, and the aged care thing was very rushed, but we had a lot of briefings about that and where we were going with that. So we had a lot more information. There's a lot of, if we've got 6 outstanding things at the moment, I don't really like to commit to anything before actually having a discussion about that in the first place. I also note that we have, I think it serves about 393,000 people. 93,000 of that aren't from Geelong, so it's about 73%, I think it is, that's us. Are we paying 73% or are we paying 95%, etc., out of that 16 mil? you know, at the moment we are about 38% more per person at the library. Are we getting 38% better stuff than everyone else is? Potentially, potentially not. I'd like to see us have more control over it so that we can potentially spread our services and stuff between libraries, community centres, elsewhere. I note that we also have a e-learning, etc., that is growing at about 20% or something of the borrowings currently, which will no doubt be growing as more people get iPads, etc. Is there a better way we can do that? I notice 20,000 people are using our Wi-Fi. Would it be cheaper for us to have Wi-Fi from every community building, in which case, or could we have like the City of Melbourne where there's just Wi-Fi in the CBD? Would that be more beneficial? I think there's a lot of questions, and to be committing to one out of these three options at the moment doesn't really sit that well with.
Person. Anyone else? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I listened to Councillor Wilkinson and Councillor Sullivan, who both said some really interesting things about libraries and how important they are to our community. And yes, we fund it to $16 million a year. Funding per capita is around $46, but the state average is around 33. So we are above and beyond the state average. However, the state government have not increased grant funding for many years. In fact, they are actually capping the funding for libraries, which means as we grow, they're missing out, libraries are missing out. For example, the state government have no operational funding for Armstrong Creek and Drysdale libraries. So we are batting above our weight, but the state government certainly isn't. So I was just looking at some of the comments online from the Advertiser, and I can see the Advertiser journalists in the room, so welcome. So if there is any concern in the community, it needs to be at the state government, and they need to step up to the plate and fund libraries. Thanks.
Councillor Nelson. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Sinclair.
So I am going to speak in support of the officer recommendation. This is a beloved service within our community, and the reason there is so much overlap now within the neighbourhood houses is because there is such a need in our community for safe spaces. This is one of the only buildings in the library buildings are some of the only buildings that you can access for free without having to spend money, without having to buy a coffee. You can just come in and sit and be in shelter, be safe, be respected and treated with dignity. There are a number of issues that are identified in the report, but these are identified through a process of due diligence that has been occurring since that, was it 2024 when the last recommendation occurred, and it is something that is actively being worked on by the Executive Steering Committee within the library, which is made up of officers from all of the council areas, by the GRLC, who have been incredibly responsive to council requests and concerns, and by our internal teams as well. And so some of these specific things that have been talked about are the introduction of service level agreements as a standard item within the governance model. There's not just discussion about bringing them in as the governance model, but how can we look at service level agreements during the transition phase as well, so the city can be really comfortable with where their investment is heading. We also have other, I guess, comment that people have made about where we stand as a regional leader and why does Geelong potentially invest more than other areas. We are the regional capital. We do have people, we have economic benefit from all of our neighbouring councils, from people travelling to use the hospital, to use shopping centres that we don't necessarily have, that might not have shops that are located in our more regional neighbours. We get that economic value within our community, and this is the role of a regional leader to share that benefit and to share that with everyone. It is an incredible service that is not just about books. It is a source of truth. It is a source of community connection. You know, we know women escaping family violence access computers in the library because they are safe, because they don't have tracking on them. It's one of the only places that they can feel comfortable that their behaviour is not going to be monitored. It's a welcoming place for child handovers. There is so much benefit to the library for not just the regional community, but for Geelong and for our whole city. There's a whole number of benefits. So reducing industrial risk during transition, which would sit with the city if we went another way. I think the due diligence that the city has undertaken has been incredibly thorough, as has the due diligence of the GRLC and the Executive Steering Committee. So I'm really happy to support this recommendation.
Councillor Sinclair. Any other councillor? Councillor Eddie Contell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Sullivan probably explained it best, where perhaps this is not something we would have looked to do on our own, but given that we've got a timeline, it has to be done, and now what we need to do is make the most of this, and I think that's what the officers are trying to do for us in this case. There's some great feedback in the report in terms of our community satisfaction ratings and the usage, and the other councillors have articulated all the good reasons that we should be in libraries and we should be investing. But this is a good opportunity for us to take the benefits that we have, take the things that we're strong in, but also to have another look at our operations, our governance, our offerings, and strategically look at how we position ourselves in managing those into the future. There's obviously feedback in the report about governance issues over a period of time, but this will help us strengthen our accountability with that. Also ensure that our strategic oversight for the significant investment that's been mentioned by other councillors, particularly Councillor Nelson, that we make sure that we're making the most of those investments and that we're managing them appropriately into the future. So I think it's a good level set for us. And so notwithstanding that perhaps we wouldn't have gone here, the fact that we've got this timeline and opportunity to put a good lens over the operating model, I think is an advantage for the community, or will be.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Eddie Contell. Anyone else that hasn't spoken? I think maybe everyone has. Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be supporting the officer recommendation, and if we're successful with this, I think a lot of the reasonable concerns that have been raised by my colleagues will be addressed by the new entity, and that's clearly the intent of correcting some of the concerns that have arisen over time. But in general terms, Mr Mayor, I'd like to make a few comments. Libraries are not just important, they're vital. Vital for a healthy democracy. A healthy democracy depends on engaged citizens who can understand and critically evaluate arguments and proposals put to them by their elected representatives. But why do we need these physical spaces when we have, apparently, all of human knowledge on a device in our pocket? For two important reasons. First, data isn't information, information isn't knowledge, and knowledge certainly isn't wisdom. We increasingly need help navigating the digital tsunami of our world. Libraries provide us with a safe physical space to pause and read and think. And libraries have real people with whom we can interact to help us. Second, libraries have evolved over time, but they're still engine rooms of reading. After the home and schools, libraries are places where reading is celebrated and advocated for all ages. And we know from recent Australian Bureau of Statistics and OECD studies that 14% of our population have very low levels of literacy. More than 40% have literacy levels below what is considered enough to get by in everyday life. In strongly supporting the recommendation before Council, I would make the following points. The GRLC has been known as a high-performing library corporation for many years. It has achieved this level of success whilst operating in a resource-constrained environment. It has taken its regional responsibilities seriously and in a careful and collaborative manner. The previous council started the process that has led to this evening's vote, and I'd like to recognise the work done by my colleagues, Councillor Ron Nelson, as former chair of the board of GRLC, and Councillor Trent Sullivan, former mayor and board member of GRLC. The work of officers in this process has been crucial to the orderly, thoughtful and rational approach to developing the recommendation before us. On a personal note, I'm extremely grateful for their support. In closing, Mr Mayor, if this resolution is successful, I'm confident that we will see GRLC 2.0, an enhanced version of what has been a highly successful model of regional cooperation. It will have a new governance model, better suited to contemporary practice, without changing the essential nature of its contribution to society. Edmund Burke described the need to respect existing traditions while remaining open to careful, gradual reform. He characterised this as a disposition to preserve and an ability to improve. Mr. Mayor, that is what we're doing here tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Story. Any other councillors wishing to speak? If not, we go back to Councillor Wilkinson to close.
Thank you. And I think in that list, I'd also like to acknowledge Councillor Cadwell, whose championing of the libraries a couple of years back really, is still reverberates across the community, certainly in the Conowari ward. She's seen as a great champion. So in the long term, I suppose option one delivers the best of both worlds. It preserves a high-performing regional library service that our community values while introducing stronger governance, greater accountability, improved transparency and a more sustainable framework for the future. It allows us to keep the benefits of collaboration while addressing the shortcomings of the model that is current. So the proposed new model provides an opportunity to address some of the shortcomings identified clearly by Councillor Aitken. So coming back to Council with a modern constitution, a new partnership agreement, clear service level agreements, improved accountability and reporting, and greater transparency around council investment and service outcomes. I wish to acknowledge the really hard work done by the GRLC and the work done by the outgoing CEO, Vanessa, the current CEO, David, and Sky, and our executive steering committee who've worked really, really hard, fellow board members, member councils, and they've actually really enabled us to get to this place. We have had a lot of briefings. We've attended workshops. It's been a really challenging thing to get your head round, and I really value the work that's gone into this. I'd also like to acknowledge after it's a rigorous recruitment process, the new incoming CEO, David Siemens, is well placed to support any transition going forward. He has incredible knowledge in this space, and so I look forward to the work ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson. So with that, I put that matter to the vote. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Majority. Next matter, and I'll just mention, the gallery has now been given a copy of the recommendations, so we don't have to read them out.
Very good.
So that's a good thing. So the next matter, proposal to declare Denny's Place, Geelong to be a public road. Have a mover, Councillor Katos. Second to Councillor Eda Contel. Councillor Katos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as this motion says, it's basically declaring Denny's Place a public road. Previously, Denny's Place used to finish at the back of the buildings in the back don from Mallop Street. As part of the city deal, 28 Mallop Street was acquired by the Minister for Planning, or she's probably still the Minister, we don't know, we'll see tomorrow. And basically this is part of the revitalisation of Geelong, so it creates those thoroughfares. So essentially the back and the rear and the front of this building was demolished and it created the laneway. So now you can walk from the waterfront, Cunningham Street, Clare Street, pedestrian lights. You've got now the access through what was 28 Mallop Street to Denny's Place, James Street, Little Mallop Street, James Street, and then you can even walk through up to the Little Mallop Street car park. So excellent connectivity. Ryrie Street, thank you, Councillor Nelson. Sorry, my apologies. Little Ryrie Street. So excellent connectivity through. But in order to do that, we have to declare that a public road now. And that's what part of this process is, to declare Denny's Place a public road. So we do have the authority to do that as a council, but we we will be engaging in a community process and issuing a public notice inviting submissions on that, and then looking to appoint a submissions review panel if there are submissions to hear those, and then notes that once that public process has been followed, a further report will be presented to Council to finalise this matter.
Councillor Eddy.
A lot more to add to that. I mean, it's really a technical explanation that Councillor Katos has gone through, the process that we'll be adopting to appraise any submissions that might come our way. I guess the only other advantage is that once we've got full control of it, we know it will be maintained well, as we always do, maintain our assets.
Contel. Any other councillor wishing to speak? If not, Councillor Katos to close.
No, nothing further.
Nothing further. So put that to the vote. All those in favour? So that's carried unanimously. The next item is the 2026-27 budget typographical corrections. If I have a mover for that, Councillor Aiken, and seconder, Councillor Katos. Councillor Aiken.
Mr Mayor, look, I won't take the liberty of reading out the full recommendation because it is available online, and there is limited members of the gallery now sitting here with us. In fact,
Valerie has left the building.
Has just left as I've spoken, so that's appropriate. So look, what was identified after we moved our budget on the 23rd of June 2026, there were two typo errors. The correct waste management charge was listed in the documentation, but in other parts of the financial package that was presented to the public, it actually did have some typo errors in it associated with it. And there was also a typo in terms of the long day care and occasional care fees. This recommendation tonight is to fix up both of those anomalies that occurred in the budget document, and we're authorising the Chief Executive Officer to release the fees and charges appendix with the changes associated with the long day care and the occasional care, and we're acknowledging to the public, if anyone did pick up the issue associated with the waste management charge, correction is being corrected tonight with the recommendation that's before us, Mr Mayor.
I think Aiken, Councillor Katos, anything
Look,
further?
Councillor Aitken has summarised that very well, and if I would add any more, I'd just be repeating the same thing. So I'm happy to support this correction. They've made a slight error, and it's been corrected.
Councillor Katos. Any other councillor wishing to add anything? If not, Councillor Aiken, anything further in closing?
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
So we'll put that matter to the vote. All those in favour? So that one carried unanimously. The next item is councillor appointments to committees. If I can have a mover, Councillor Burson, a seconder, Councillor Aiken. So Councillor Burson.
Yeah, this is just a Councillor Nelson omitted, Councillor Story in. That's about it for the Audit and Risk Committee.
That's good. Councillor Aiken.
There may have been some significant changes in committees and governance today in the city and the state, Mr Mayor, but this is actually just a small change that we're doing in Geelong. We're just putting Councillor Story onto our Audit and Risk Committee. Congratulations on that appointment, Councillor Story, and I look forward to receiving reports back to you as the understudy to the Mayor from that particular committee. Thank you.
And all councillors are welcome to attend. All councillors are welcome. Anyone else wishing to add anything? If not, Councillor Burson to close.
Nothing further.
With that, we put that to the vote. All those in favour? So it's carried unanimously. I think that is it for our public reports. We have one matter to discuss in confidence. These are the Audit and Risk Committee June meeting minutes. If I can move Councillor Nelson, second Councillor Contel. We move that into confidential. All those in favour? So we will do that. So we'll just close down the online. And maybe if we can close the doors. Yep.
Record of informal meetings.
We've lost the audience.
Is there one?
I've got one security guard that's listening.
Oh, sorry, I don't have that one there. But when we come back into open meeting.
Don't wind me up.
Yeah, the hamstring, knee.